I'm Joe, you're you, and this is Fiduciary Friday. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to get a hold of me, click that link in the description and let's make it happening. For today's happenings, I'm going to have a three-part series for you. I'm going to be talking about multiple representation. Part 1, I'm going to talk about what is multiple representation. Part 2, I'm going to talk about the pros of multiple representation. In Part 3, I'm going to talk about the cons of multiple representation. So, what is multiple representation, you ask? It's a good question. That's why we're here. Multiple representation is when a realtor, like myself, represents both the buyer and the seller in a real estate transaction. Now, why am I talking about this? It's been a hot topic in the real estate industry if you've been following along. In British Columbia, they've been talking a lot about changing the dynamics of multiple representation. They've been talking about removing it altogether or making rules for it to make it a better process for both sides. What happens in multiple representation? A realtor like myself will list the property for sale, working with the seller. We're going to have the seller's best interest come first, and then what can happen is somebody can call us, or a buyer we're working with wants to buy the property, and now we'll be representing the buyer as well with their interest coming first. So what do we have here? We have a conflict of interest. Here I am representing a seller and representing a buyer, and my goal is to put both of their interests first. Well, this is difficult. When a realtor is representing both a buyer and seller, there's a couple important factors. The first thing a realtor can't do when representing both sides is negotiate the price. He has to be more of a mediator and allow both the seller and buyer negotiate the price on their own, where the realtor just mediates the process. Also, in multiple representation, the realtor can't disclose, without either side's permission, the motivation on the other side. This is something that would not be available if there was two realtors working in the deal. For example, if I have a house listed and my seller is in financial troubles, this is not something that I would be telling other realtors or buyers. This information is privileged to me because I'm representing that seller. And there might be a situation on the buying side where, for example, they might have sold their house, have a closing date coming up in a couple weeks, and they don't want the seller to know they're super desperate. And this might be something that the buyer might not want me to disclose, want a realtor to disclose to the seller. So to sum that up, multiple representation is when a realtor represents both a buyer and a seller in one single real estate transaction. In part 2 of this series, I'm going to be talking about the cons of multiple representation and some of the conflict of interest that can happen there. Thanks for tuning in. Share this video, and we'll see you next week.